hi, it's me. And if you're watching this, it means I finally edited a video, so that's good. Because some of you are going to think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not in the slightest. I have tried to film probably 40 videos since I posted my last video, which I had to go back and look it up because I didn't remember. But I posted my last video on Monday, August 7th. And in that video, I said, next time I post a video would be when I finish editing. Fun fact, I actually finished editing. It was 1 something in the morning, Wednesday, August 9th. So technically it was Tuesday night, but also actually it was Wednesday. And which was like barely a day or two after I posted my last video, but I didn't film anything that weekend because I was tired and I was like, of course, get some sleep. But since then, I've tried to film and I finished some of these videos and I started editing 2 of them. And part of the problem is that, you know, I've just been a little stressed. I got a little agitated about the writing related thing. I've been a little stressed about a separate writing related thing. And so every time I tried to talk about, you know, what I was stressed about, I ended up going off on a tangent. And then I would look up and the video would be like 30 minutes long. And I'm like, oh, I'm not in the mood to edit a 30-minute long video. But if I had just gone ahead and edited it, I'd be done now, right? And then whenever I tried to talk about what I was agitated about, I ended up rambling. And then we had the same problem with the video being too long, or I felt like the video didn't really make any sense. And then I also would give up. So if you're watching this, it means we got through this video. And it's just not that serious, right? Like, this is fun. This is supposed to be relaxing and fun. And generally, I really enjoy talking about writing and stuff. So I also wanted to film this video in case anyone was interested in getting the writing update and you want to know what's going on. So that's what this video is about. We're going to do a writing update and talk about what I have been working on. So I'm going to cover 2 projects in this video. I'm going to talk about the book that I just finished editing, or the book that I finished editing. Well, yeah, I did. I just finished editing it last month, August 9th. And then we're going to talk about the project that I'm currently working on. So first up, the book that I've been editing. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, I will explain everything. And if you have, the story I'm talking about is, I've just been calling it my Ari story, or Ari story, because the main character's name is Ari. And the actual working title for that book was Ari and the Hatter, because it is basically a weird Alice in Wonderland inspired psychological horror with an undercurrent of the supernatural and like a sprinkling of suspense. I'm not the best at like labeling my books, you know, but to the best of my ability, it is some kind of psychological horror. And I started working on this book, which is called Down Into This Madness, which is one of my more favorite titles that I've had. And it's called Down Into This Madness. And I started working on it March 2022. And to explain why I was so rusty and why it was taking so long, is that at the beginning of 2020, I had a writing meltdown and I quit. And I didn't even try to do anything for about 1.5 years. And then I did a little bit of dabbling at the end of 2021. And so we get to March 2022. And I was like, oh my gosh, for the love of God, like, will you write something? So I started working on Down Into This Madness. And I worked on it for like 2 weeks. I got about 10 or 15,000 words. And then I just stopped. And I did nothing for like 3 months. And I kept telling myself to continue, and it just like wasn't happening. So around the 3-4 month mark, I was like, what do you think the problem is? I'm like, do you want to quit? Do you want to work on something else? I'm like, no, I really want to write this book, but I just felt like there was something, you know, about the backstory needed to change, you know, just like tweak a little bit. And I didn't want to force it or rush it. And so I set the story aside and I worked on something else. And it took me 6 months to finish that other thing that I was working on. And I don't have like a typical speed that I write. Like, the story is going to get done when it gets done. You know, it's going to depend. It's always going to depend on how many days you're writing, how long you're writing on those days and how much work you're getting done on those days. Like, that's what it's always going to depend on. And with the story that I was working on, which was a Crucible retelling, which I've talked about in an earlier video, I had a 20,000 word head start from when I had been working on it in 2019. And I had to edit, those words a few times to get everything how I wanted it to go. But it took me 6 months to finish the first draft. And before I had my meltdown, like with my old writing machine that broke all the way down, we had to build another one, but we have a better one now. But in the old writing machine, typically I would finish the first draft in about 2 or 3 months, sometimes 4. And it would take me 1 or 2 months to edit. And that was pretty typical, So it took me 6 months to finish this first draft. I was not upset about that at all because I was like, you hadn't done anything in a while. So I finished it at the end of February 2022. And so after a couple of days, I pick up Downton's Madness. I reread what I have. I get reoriented. And then we get going. And I continue the story. So it takes me, for those of you who like data points, until July the 11th to finish the first draft. And I didn't write every day. Like, with my Crucible retelling, like, I would go, 2 or 3 weeks at a time and do nothing. And then I would have, a really good, weekend. So when I'm writing down into this madness, I don't have an entire week that I'm not working on it. But I went back and I looked through my habit tracker the other day, and it was I had, a few weeks where I only worked on it, 1 or 2 times. But I had several weeks where I worked on it at least 4 times. And if on a really good week, I worked on it 6 times. I don't think there was a single week where I worked on it every day. That happens sometimes when I'm editing, but it doesn't happen when I'm drafting because you need a break sometimes. So I finished the book July the 11th, and I take a week off, if I even took an entire week off, which I probably didn't. I think I probably took 5 days off. But let's say I took a week off and then I started editing, and it took me 3 weeks to do 2 rounds of editing. So I do a silent round, and then I do an out loud round where I look for more missing words, misspelled words, misplaced stuff, anything I missed when I was reading silently, and things of that nature. And it's also really fun because I can use voices for the characters, and I just really love editing. So obviously I spent a lot of my free time editing this book. So my first draft came in at 114,715 words. It is the longest thing I've ever written in my life. The next longest book was a YA paranormal that I wrote in 2014. That was 86 something thousand words. So between 86 and 87,000 words. So it kind of freaked me out a little bit. For those of you who don't know, you typically have about 250 words a page. So that would get the book around 450 pages. So I'm like, okay, that's not too long. But I had never written anything that long, so I was kind of freaking out. So I wanted to get my word count down, and I'm not an overwriter by any stretch. So usually my word count goes up a little bit. When I'm editing, I'll probably add about as many words as I cut. So I was a little concerned about my word count going up when I was editing, but I did manage to get about 3,700 words cut. I did have to add words in some places. So overall, I got the word count down about 3,700 words. So I got it down to just over 111. I really wanted to be in the 110. Not that there's something magical about that, and not that there's a huge difference between 114 and 110. But I did get into the 110s at some point, but then I got into that last chapter, and I had to add a few words, and I had to add some words here and there. So I got over 111, but I'm going to call it a win because we did the best we can. So I was going to do a 3rd round of editing, but I was being super nitpicky out of the gate. And so I decided to just move on before I wreck something. And so I did get queries sent out, and it's so stressful. Okay, which is one of the reasons why it's been a while since I posted the videos, because every time I tried to do a writing update, I was stressed about, querying or agitated about something else, and It's just a whole thing. But I did go ahead and send queries out. And so we are moving on to the next project for now while we, try to keep ourselves sane while we wait for responses. So typically, I write some kind of dark fiction. So technically, the book that I'm currently working on would also fall under a dark fiction umbrella, but it is quite different than the kind of books I normally write. So normally when I say dark fiction, I mean like supernatural horror, psychological horror, dark contemporary fantasy, paranormal, things like that. This is like a suspense book. So if you saw my last video when I was talking about trying to settle on the next project and how often I change my mind and how chaotic that process is, I said at the end of that video that my next project was going to be working title Dollhouse, and I was very sure, like I was 100% sure. And so that is what I'm working on. The working title is Dollhouse. I don't have anything else I'm calling it right now. And it is like a suspense book with like some supernatural threads going through it. I'm so in love with this. I'm having so much fun. And I like a good writing challenge, I like to try new things. I like to push myself. I like to experiment. And it is really, really fun. I'm surprised by how well it's going because I've never written a suspense book before. I've never tried. I've only been reading suspense for like 3 years. So obviously I really like suspense books, or I wouldn't be trying to write one, but I was expecting it to be like difficult or something, or for me to have, just like more, I don't know, more of a hard time, because like when I was working on Down Into This Madness, it's like, I consider myself to be like a planner, but there's a lot of like pantsing and discovery writing that goes on. So typically, like, I get an idea and I just like start writing, and I don't even try to outline until I'm at least, probably 25,000 words or more into the book. And then I edit my outline as I go. And I also add scenes to the story as I go through the outline. So that is part of the course. And that's what I did with Down Into This Madness, except, what I had going on with Down Into This Madness was that I'm trying to get my main character from point A to point C. And I got her to point B, and even when I got her to point B, I was like, I have no idea still how I'm going to get to point C. And so there was just like a lot of like stumbling that happened while I was working through that story. And so I was expecting for there to be a lot of stumbling when I was working on Dollhouse, and there's been almost none. So I started working on this. I'm going to be very specific. It was August 14th. And if you're doing some math, that's literally 1 week after I finished editing Down Into This Madness. And obviously, I was spending a lot of time editing if I got done in 3 weeks. And so you'd think I would have been tired, but no. So I wasn't planning on starting to write yet because I had a lot of research that I had to do for this story. And I was doing some research, and then I started getting my notes together, and then I realized I needed to do some more research. And then I started brainstorming where I wanted the story to start Monday, August 14th, and I had to do more research. So I've done a lot of research, and I'm probably using 5% of it, but I stand behind all the work that I did because I do think that other 95%, it's like, I think it has created like a stronger foundation to this story. So it's all good. But I'm really not using most of the research that I did. So after I did the last leg of, not even the last leg of research, because I'm still constantly looking up stuff as I go. But when I did the last large bit of research that I was doing, I got home that evening from work, and I was like, I'm going to just go ahead and get the bones of this first scene down so that I don't have a blank page when I'm ready to write. I got carried away. I wrote 2 chapters. I edited them a few times because I edit as I go because, I've been writing for a while and I can do that without getting stuck. And I just kept going from there. So it's been about a month. And as of the film of this video, which is September 10th, so hours before you're watching it, After the film of this video, I have around 55,000 words in this book. And the reason why I'm surprised is because, like, if you've ever done NaNoWriMo, like, that's the point of NaNoWriMo, is to write, like, 50,000 words in 30 days. NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month is every November, right? So, like, and I've run NaNoWriMo a few times, so obviously I can write 50,000 words in 30 days. However, I'm usually a pretty slow starter. You know, using Down to This Madness as an example, it took me twice as long to write the first half of the book than it took me to write the second half of the book. And so I'm just really surprised because normally I'm a very slow starter, you know, and I'm not, like I said, I don't come close to writing every day. And I'm still not writing every day, but I'm having more writing sessions. So I am writing, you know, more often, more days in a week than I normally write. I'm writing longer. I have longer writing sessions than I normally have. And, you know, I'm not typing any faster than normal. So I'm still getting about the same amount of work done per writing session, but I am writing more in general. It's just like, I'm just kind of surprised that I've been able to do that, you know, because like I said, normally there's a lot of like stuttering, there's a lot of stumbling at the beginning of a project, and I'm not having that with this. And I don't know if it's all the research that I did ahead of time or what, but it's been like going really well. And like going really well as far as like I'm not stumbling and tripping all over myself constantly. And obviously, you know, I love this book. It's really twisted and messed up. And I'm getting into like some really, really fun stuff and really dramatic stuff. And, you know, the tension's dialing up. And it's just like really good. It's a really good experience. Objectively, I don't know if the book is good, but it's been a really good experience. So I could be done by the end of this month, but my goal is to be done by the end of the year. I'll obviously be done probably sooner than that. I'm expecting to be done by at least mid-October, and then, you know, we'll edit it and then query it if we have to. So that is what's going on. So to recap, I finished editing an Alice-inspired psychological horror called Down to This Madness since my last video. And in the last month, I've been working on my current project, which is Working Title Dollhouse. And we are past the 50K mark. I'm expecting the book to land around 90K. So I'm in the second half of the book. And it's not like every writing session has been like super easy. I literally had a day last week where I was like, what am I doing? And I was talking about it with a writing friend, and she's like, oh, you're in the trees right now. And I've heard that phrase before where it's like you can't see the forest for the trees. But there was something about her saying it, you know, in relation to me writing that like I really like understand that this happens to me every single project. At some point in the project, I stop and I look at what I'm doing and I'm like, what are you doing? And Down to This Madness, it actually happened pretty late. It happened around the 75% mark. And then this one, it happened right around 45,000 words. So right around 45,000 words. So right around the projected middle of the book if I end up around 90, like I think I'm going to. And yeah, I came to a complete stop. And I'm looking around and I'm like, what are you doing? And it's like, I get that metaphor so much because it's like when you first start a story, you know, you head into the woods, you have your gear, you have a plan, you know, and you start like forging the path ahead. But at some point in the process, you like stop to rest or something and you look back and you see all the progress that you've made, but then you look ahead and you see like this mess, you know? So like I have like half an outline and like a bunch of notes like in my Word document. So we're like very fancy over here. And so I have like this mess in front of me, you know, and I have all this stuff behind me, and then I keep going back, you know, and like, oh, I want to like straighten this, I want to add this, you know, I want to like, you know, move this around a little bit or whatever. And then I go back to the point where I'm at, and I'm like, why are you doing this? But, you know, that's a sign that I'm largely enjoying myself though, because, you know, we don't worry about stuff like that. We have our moments and we talk it out and then we move on. So that is all for this video. And I think I have a plan for the next video, but I don't want to say what it is in case I change my mind. So I will see you guys in the next video. It will not be a month from now. But I hope things are going well, and feel free to share whatever. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.